Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 5 Tips and Tricks podcast for careers in athletics. I am your host, Dr. Morey Mossovitz, and with you, as always, my co-host, Jen Albanese.
Hey, everybody. Hi, Morey. What's going on?
Oh, just another fun week in the world of athletics.
Oh, it's fun. I have so many things that I want to talk about, but one thing in particular this week that came up that I just have to know how you feel about this is all this AI stuff. And
It's so funny that you're talking about this because I've had some bang out fights with my father over AI recently. So this is good timing.
Well, it has just been such a topic of conversation in our office. And I guess I guess this just shows my age. I'm so behind the times. I don't know any of this new AI technology stuff. And what my staff was showing me was this thing called Chat GBT. Have you heard of this?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I had not. So I did not know what it actually was. So we were messing around with it. It's a website, obviously. Probably most of our listeners know what it is. And you can type in anything you want into the AI software.
It'll write papers for you.
Writes a paper for you. I was shocked. We put tell me about monkeys. And it was like a 3-page paper about monkeys and all the species and what monkeys can do and all the differences. And I was like, what is the point of thinking if you have this? It's insane to me.
Well, that's my father's point that we've been having a death out, dragged down argument about, is that he believes that, I teach a class and the university provides software to tell if it's created by AI. And he said, that's not fair. If they're using AI to write a paper, it's okay. It's like using a calculator. And I'm like, it's nothing like using a calculator.
It's nothing like using a calculator. No, not at all.
No, he's convinced that it's perfectly okay. And I've tried to explain to him the idea of the concept of knowledge. And that if you're trying to that, why are you even taking a class if you have no intention of learning anything? And I teach a graduate level class, so that's even dumber.
Right. That you're choosing to take your class. I don't know, I just feel like back in the day when we were writing papers, if we did anything like that, used something off a book or off a website, we were getting totally yelled at about it and points taken off. It was plagiarism. It was just horrible. And now they're just letting students do this. It's just crazy to me.
Well, I don't think they're letting students do it. I just think they don't have they're trying to have the ability to stop it. And if you're a professor that doesn't know to input it into these systems, you could continuously have a problem.
Yeah, clearly I didn't know about it. So, every single intern that I've had who's done a marketing plan could have easily just put that into Chat GPT. And I'm thinking, wow, they're incredible. And it's like this computer is doing everything they're supposed to do.
So I guess the question for you is, have you had any interns whose writing was really good, but whose work was really bad?
I'm questioning every intern now. I'm not sure. And there were a few in these last few semesters I'm a little concerned about, because now that I know that this is a possibility or something that they can do, I'm questioning it. I'm really questioning it.
Well, if I have the ability to, I will share with you the technology they provide so that I can grade papers and see if somebody is using AI or not, if that makes you feel any better.
It makes me feel a lot better. It's just crazy. Well, I don't know. I feel like you just want to have your own work. And like you said, the knowledge of learning, I don't know. It's just everybody's trying to find the shortcuts in the world. And it's crazy. When we did that monkey thing, I can't even tell you. It was just unbelievable to me. It was like a 3-page paper on monkeys. Things I didn't even know about monkeys were coming up. I'm like, okay, all right.
Do you have a lot of knowledge of monkeys?
No. Except watching Sing with my kids, and Johnny's our favorite. That's about what I know.
There you go.
So.
Maybe AI is benefit. I can tell my father.
There you go. I can't believe your dad is cool with that.
I don't even think he really knows what it is, so I think that probably helps too. He probably thinks it is a calculator.
Gosh, I love your dad so much. He's literally the best.
Well, today, I think like all things, we're in a situation where we have somebody that is kind of on the cutting edge of technology, similar to AI, where we have a guest today that's working with NIL, and he's one of the first in his kinds at that. So I think it's going to be pretty exciting to talk to him and learn a little bit about what he's doing.
Absolutely. It'll be great to catch up with him too. So I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a really good conversation.
So when we get back, we will have our guests for the day, and we look forward to seeing everyone after the break. If you're enjoying this podcast, please follow us on your favorite podcast streaming service. The 5 Tips and Tricks podcast is a part of Athletic Career Consulting, a group focused on educating and guiding high school and college students looking towards careers in athletics. To find out more, go to our website at www.athcareer.com. That's ATHCAREER.
Okay, everybody, welcome back from break. And now we have our guest for the day. So Morey, would you like to introduce him?
Absolutely. Super excited to have this gentleman. We are lucky to have today as a native of California. He was a high school football and baseball athlete. His first job in sports could be when he was served as the bat boy for the CSUF baseball program, where his father was an athletic administrator. He went on to serve in compliance roles at Oregon, UCLA, and Syracuse. He now is in an innovative, cutting-edge role as the first associate director of athletics for NIL at Cal, which is pretty amazing. We want to have a warm welcome for Justin DiTolla. Justin, welcome.
Hi, Justin.
Jen, Morey, pleasure. Thank you for having me. Really enjoy seeing you all again. It's great to catch up, and I really appreciate you for inviting me. And yeah, I'm excited. This is awesome.
Well, we're super excited to have you, to have, not only because we have always enjoyed working with you and your experience in compliance, but also to have this new exciting role at Cal, which is kind of state of the art, is pretty neat.
Yeah, it's very much on the cutting edge. It's not like we see NIL and the news, the hotlines. I mean, everywhere, the newsletters we all subscribe to. It's not like NIL's top front and center of all of those things, right? So, no, it's been fun. It's been really cool to do something new, start a brand new position, kind of make it my own, and then like I said, it's the hot topic of our industry. So it's been really cool to kind of be on the forefront of what's next and what's to come.
That's awesome, because you're the perfect guy to do that. So we're very excited for you, and we're looking forward. So what's your first tip for everybody here?
Oh gosh. So my first tip, as far as working in athletics, I was trying to reflect a little bit on this as to what I wanted to say, but I think my first tip, and I'll kind of relate this to my first role in athletics of compliance, and then I'll do another one for NIL specifically. But the first one would be for just entering college athletics. I had to do it myself. A lot of us had to do it, but it's being persistent, developing relationships, and communication. I mean, I guess it's 3 in 1, but I think for me, I had to be very persistent in trying to get into college athletics. I was fortunate that when I was a student athlete myself at the University of San Diego, I got to know a deputy athletic director there who ended up connecting me with somebody, and they were at the University of Oregon. Again, as a student athlete, I never really wanted to get into compliance. I don't have a legal background at all. But I got connected to somebody through the deputy AD at University of San Diego. He was at the University of Oregon. He oversaw their compliance office, and I was really looking to get into marketing or get into the business office, and I just developed a line of communication. We talked maybe once every month, 2 weeks, month. I mean, it was kind of off and on, but over time, it was the persistence that I showed to not give up on wanting to get into the college athletics. And it was the fact that I was able to build the relationship, and they had an opportunity that came up. They were really just looking for a body in the office. Little did I know, but I was persistent. I had developed a relationship, and it worked out really well. And I got my foot in the door and never looked back. So that persistence and being able to develop a relationship and kind of grow your network really helped me. I would also say, to kind of add on to that more from a specific compliance role, communication. I think anything that we do in working in college athletics, you're communicating with all kinds of constituents. At the lower levels of compliance, you're communicating with student athletes and coaches. As you work your way up, like most of us do in college athletics, you start to deal more with athletic administrators, campus partners, parents nowadays more than ever. You need to be able to communicate effectively. You need to be able to learn the language of the individuals that you're speaking with. Each sport has a separate culture. Student athletes, I've learned, especially recently, have a completely different language than I have and I had when I was in college. I hear words on a daily basis that I just look and I'm like, I don't even know what you're saying, but okay, I'll just nod to that. And then I always ask them, what does that mean? And it always ends up being a good conversation. But you have to be able to communicate effectively. You have to be able to meet people where they are, and that doesn't mean I'm going to try to use new slang terms that I have no idea what they mean, but it's understanding how to communicate effectively, right? Especially in compliance, you're using legal language that to me was foreign when I first got started, and you have to be able to summarize that in simple terms, right? As we know, the NCAA manual is a very large book, very large guide, and it's difficult to digest. And so you have to be able to digest that and then be able to communicate that effectively to all kinds of constituents. So, being able to communicate is a must, and that helps build relationships. And to me, relationships is the key to our success in our business.
Right. If you can't relate to people where they're at, you're not going to get very far with whatever you're doing. And so like being persistent, being able to relate things to people, it's the whole deal. And that transfers across, compliance. Like even when you, and you've worked with staffs or have people that you supervise, if you can't communicate to them, you might as well not be able to be in the role of a leader or a person that's in those jobs, because you can't be effective in your role.
Yeah, Justin, something you just said really stuck out to me when you talked a little bit about how you kept in contact with the person at Oregon, that you kept communicating with them on a monthly basis and keeping in touch with them. I think that's something for the younger student right now, whether you're in high school or college, to remember that those connections that you make, you got to continue those even when you get a job, or even when, because you may need that person again. So those connections and that communication, like you said, with whoever might be your mentor or someone that would help guide you or be a nice networking person to keep with you, that is so important. And I think people forget about that. It's like, hey, one and done. They help you get a job and it's over. They give you a piece of advice and it's over. To keep those connections and continue to communicate is so important. I think people forget about that. That was great. So
because you're going to see them down the road. Like it just is inevitable. Like as big as I think athletics is or I don't know, it might be the wrong way to say it, but you're going to connect with people at some point, whether you're at a conference or whether you're just somewhere in life, and being able to communicate and be effective with them is a huge deal. So.
Yeah. The only other thing I would add to that is, in speaking to the younger audience looking to get into athletics, don't be afraid to reach out to people. Don't be afraid to shoot an email if you don't know somebody and ask about their industry and express your interest. I mean, I've never turned down somebody wanting to meet with me to learn more about compliance or college athletics. At the end of the day, somebody had to give us an opportunity. And, I always try to pay it back by answering every email that comes to me, even if they're not affiliated with my school, my former schools, et cetera. Like I owe it to the person that gave me a chance to give everybody else a chance and at least get to know them.
Do you know what I think is funny about that? I was thinking about it the other day. I feel like in higher ed settings, that's like so normalized, because it is still education. People forget about it, but still like being a professional in a higher ed setting, like it's about teaching and learning. So I always feel like it's part of our obligation in that world to like help. And I'm sure if we were in the professional setting, you might feel similarly, but I feel like that kind of goes the extra mile of like, we're in a setting where we're teaching kids and we're trying to even though people question that all the time now, but we're really going beyond and trying to make more educated people and put them into the world.
Yeah, for real. I do that too. I feel the same way. Like anybody that wants to talk to me for 10 minutes, I'm happy to tell them and help them. And hopefully that's what this podcast is doing too. I say to Morey, like when we started talking about doing this, I wish I had something like this, some resource like this to listen to or learn from and hear from different people. Because I think it's so impactful. So
awesome first start. Jen, we're number 2,
yes,
correct?
We're on number 2. I have to keep Morey with his numbers, Justin. If you
somebody has to keep him on track. I get it.
Keep him on track.
Yeah,
that's what I'm here for. So we're at number 2 now, Justin. So your second tip, what do you got?
Gosh, second tip, and I was going to make this related to NIL, but I'm still learning this whole NIL landscape and my full-time role in NIL. So I would say if anybody wants to get involved in the NIL unit industry, I think right now the biggest thing is to take advantage of your knowledge of social media and branding and marketing, right?
Wow.
That is essentially what NIL is. I have a background of marketing. I studied marketing marketing and finance when I was an undergrad, and I'm trying to go back to that. I'm actually still working through my MBA at Syracuse, and there's a lot of classes I'm taking. Yeah, thank you.
Nice job.
I'm taking a lot of classes right now that are so applicable to my new role in marketing and branding and sponsorships. I mean, the timing could not have worked out better, but I think it's utilizing the knowledge you have of social media, branding, because to me, as somebody who has now been in the workforce, that's a nice way of saying I'm old now, but has been in the workforce, like I don't understand social media. I don't understand branding. I don't understand the digital side of our business as much as someone who is younger. And
Right.
Everybody is looking for a way to understand social media, the creative side, the digital side. I mean, we can't hire enough creative and digital staff members here at Cal to serve our student athletes in sports. It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
and
no one can.
I would say if you can utilize or leverage the strengths that you have in that space, that's a great way to get involved in NIL. The other thing I talk to our student athletes about is not being afraid to pitch yourself, right? And it kind of goes back to what we talked about in the first item is don't be afraid to reach out, right? Like talk to people. This is new. I love talking about it. And we at Cal formally announced my new role a couple weeks ago, and you won't imagine the amount of emails and text messages I got from people wanting to discuss my role and what I do. And like I said, I don't decline those opportunities. So my calendar's been pretty full, but
thank you for taking the time to do it with us.
We
got in under the wire.
We're so lucky.
That's not what I meant. Stop it.
No. We do appreciate it though.
Yeah.
But you love us though, Justin.
I do. I mean, Jen, we share a birth date. Come on.
I was going to bring it up.
I totally forgot about that. You, Herm Fraser, and Jen also the same birthday, right? Wow.
It's the best day. It's the best day of the year. It should be a holiday. Let's be real, Justin. It should be a holiday.
Agreed. And our pictures would be up on the video board at the Dome, and Anthony DeFino would always make mine 5 times the size as everybody else. But exactly.
He put like 4 different pictures of us up. I was like, where did you even find those? Where did you find those pictures of us? Like,
so funny. But yeah, to get back to more of the answer, like, I think we're all still trying to figure out NIL. And I've had some individuals on our staff who want to get involved, and it's assisting. It's, it's almost hey, how can I get involved? How can I help? What can I do to learn more about it? And we're always looking for additional sets of hands, right? We all know that no matter what school you're at. And just, I hate to say volunteering, but it's, hey, what can I do to get involved? And a lot of that is showing up to an event that I'm hosting, or, coming by and meeting and talking through what we're currently working on from a resource standpoint. I think those would be the pieces of advice I would have.
I think it's cool because one comment, like, it's so neat that you're taking your compliance background and then taking that educational marketing background and like combining them into this new role. Like what a great opportunity. And then 2, what do you say, and this might be a little bit out of the box, but to people that think NIL is not just like that, it's about big contracts and not about social. Like I feel like people automatically are thinking about these like big contracts to get big time name student athletes to institutions, and you're talking about social media. So I feel like there's a little bit of a discrepancy from what sometimes people think about what NIL is.
Totally. A great question. The way I've tried to phrase it and explain it to people is you have the authentic side of NIL, which is the student athletes being a brand ambassador, doing endorsement deals, promoting a product or a company or a service, hosting a camp, giving lessons, doing autographs, right? Your normal, typical authentic type of marketing deals, right?
The stuff they already should be able to do with the NCAA for years.
Agreed.
Right.
Then you've got this other side, and I've heard it be called a few things. I've called it artificial NIL. There's people who call it roster value NIL, and that's obviously the side where there's a collective, which is a third-party entity that is set up typically by fans or donors for one specific school. And what they try to do is get as many funds as possible into that fund, and from there create NIL activities for student athletes to be able to pay them whatever they deem appropriate. And that's where you're seeing the large dollar figures is in that latter component with the collective type of money. Now, they're still having to perform certain activities, but it's not nearly the same, or you're not getting the same value of building your brand, which is, the way I've looked at it, your resume online, learning the key business concepts of creating a business, how to manage your money, the key concepts of NIL and what it should be at an educational institution. So it's a different side, whether it's positive or negative, depends on your view on it. I think we've all had to, in working in college athletics, had to adapt and be able to see it as a positive rather than a negative, because ultimately it's happening everywhere and it's legal and permissible. And in order to be able to continue to strive for competitive success, you have to be able to adapt and utilize the strengths that you can in that space.
And you could make a collective that kind of models the first version that you talked about, but that's a choice that collective would need to make, right?
Right. And the thing with the collectives too is it's so much for the, those big three sports, those footballs and the basketballs of the world, that doesn't cover across, all the sports and all the, whether it's the Olympic sports or the non-revenue sports, Justin, hit us with tip number 3.
Okay, tip 3. Well, first off, before I get started, let me apologize for the technical difficulties we're having on our end. That is totally on me.
No, it's okay.
Fine.
No, as Jen said, this is putting my editing skills to the test. I actually think she enjoys it a little bit evilly. Like she had a coughing fit one time. No one actually saw it because I edited it out on our first podcast.
Perfect.
So you're perfectly fine.
Yeah,
all right,
Justin, I was like dying.
Well, Morey's getting all the experience he needs working on the technical skills. So perfect. Okay, tip 3. Something I've had to learn over my career is, I grew up in college athletics with my dad being at Cal State Fullerton. That's how I got my first job as a bat boy, as you referenced, Morey. And, I think we all, at least for me, growing up around college athletics, you idolize coaches, right? That's just kind of how it is, especially if you're an athlete. They tell you what to do and you do it, right? And you always look for approval. You always ask for guidance on how to get better, feedback, right? And something I've had to learn is that coaches like to be treated as equals as well, and you need to treat them as equals if you're going to get their respect. And so I think it's how you can work with coaches, and it's treating them like normal people. Depending on the coach and the sport, it kind of goes almost back to the communication aspect I brought up in the first tip. You can kind of give them some language to know that to let them know their sport. Each sport has its own language as well, right? Even using terms from their sport, whether it's just how they talk, terms that are used during the game, strategy. And I think it's being able to treat coaches as peers rather than looking up to them and idolizing them. At some of the schools I've worked at, or really all the schools I've worked at, we have unbelievably talented and qualified coaches, individuals who have won gold medals, have won multiple national titles as an athlete or as a coach, and they can sometimes be the most demanding, right? And I remember when I was an undergrad, I actually worked in the athletics department, and I worked for one of my jobs was to to rake the infield on the little ATV we had for softball. And I'll never forget, we hosted a big tournament with San Diego State, and we had this big charter bus come and roll up. And of course, it was big bad UCLA, right? And they were one of the best programs in the country. And I'll never forget Lisa Fernandez, who is one of the greatest softball players of all time, steps off, and I I was so starstruck, right? Like I was like, oh my gosh, that's the Lisa Fernandez. Well, and then go figure, 7 years later, no, not even 5 years later, I was a peer of hers working at UCLA alongside, and softball was one of the sports I worked with. And I had to kind of get over that sort of,
Yeah.
like fame or fear or shock. And like, she's just a normal person. And I mean, she's one of the most down to earth people I've ever met and was amazing to work with. But it's the way you deal with coaches and work with coaches is they're your peers. They're not people that you idolize. They're not people that, you put on a pedestal, because at the end of the day, if you do that, you're just going to be a pleaser and you're just going to say yes to everything and not be able to deal with difficult conversations or difficult situations. And nowadays in college sports, we deal with more difficult situations than ever before. So yeah, I would just say it's how you treat coaches, how you communicate with them, and the level of respect that you give and garner.
I think this is like one of the best ones ever. Like I think this
So
is
good.
like, because this is a big one for me, especially with young staff who come in intimidated, and then you have to try and work with them to understand that, like, by not being like, it's almost not, I don't want to say not being professional, but by not being able to communicate to a coach because you're intimidated or because you're unable to, provide insight, you're not doing your job effectively. And
Right.
as we all know, coaches sometimes want to hear what they want to hear, and they don't want to hear what might not be the truth or the reality to things. They don't want to hear that things might not be exactly the way they want them. But I mean, everyone, that's not just coaches, but coaches sometimes are in that boat. And to be able to speak to them and say honestly what it is, I think what I've learned is at the end of the day, they will respect you more, and they will end up having a better relationship with them by not being the guy that just says yes to everything, because at the end of the day, you're not actually being effective for them.
Yeah. The intimidation, that's the key one too. I feel like people get intimidated so easily. And if you're not intimidated, then you're able to just do a better job. You're able to communicate better, and in the end, like Morey said, do your job better, and they're going to respect you more. So that's a big one. That's a big. I think it's really for anybody too. Like, no matter who you're dealing with, like, say you're doing, like, on my side of things, it's like the marketing and game presentation. We might be retiring somebody's jersey, or we have a special ceremony, like, and if you have that starstruck feeling and you're not able to effectively do what you're supposed to do. And I think, younger staff and students and interns forget, like, this is a job more than being the fan, and they have to do a job too. So that's a good one, Justin.
Awesome. That was a good one. Strong one.
That's a strong one. Okay,
Thank
well, you gotta follow that up with number 4 here.
I gotta get a fourth now. Let's see here. I think one of the tips or tricks that I can give as far as getting into college athletics and being successful, other than the first 3 that we discussed already, I'm trying to come up with a good one to follow that up. I mean, I think if I look back at my career, I think it's being yourself. And as you can see, all of these are somewhat tied together, right? But it's be yourself, right? Don't feel like you need to be somebody else. Don't feel like you need to be the AD right away or act like an AD. Like, you need to be yourself and be true to who you are as a person, your traits, your values, your characteristics. In our industry right now, at any school I've been at, you're going to get challenged, right? And what you're really going to have to focus on is you're going to need to look internally as to what your morals and values are, not just the morals and values of the school that you're at or of the program that you're working with or working for. You need to be able to understand what you stand for, because we are making a lot of difficult decisions, and in our industry, those are real-time decisions that need to be made right away, right? And you can't make those unless you understand what you stand for and your values. And this might be something you don't deal with until a few years into your career, but this is something that in my leadership role at Syracuse, and especially here at Cal, whether it's staff, whether it's coaches, whether it's student athletes that bring issues to you, it's easy to side with whomever is coming to you with the complaint, or it's easy to take the route where there is no difficult conversation or there is no difficult confrontational issue, but you have to be able to do that to instill lessons into individuals and make the right decision. I think it's critical to understand what you stand for, and you have to be able, at the end of the day, to go home and look yourself in the mirror and say, yep, I'm proud of the way I handled that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if
Yeah.
you don't, sometimes there is no turning back. And in this day of litigation, of people getting fired for making a wrong decision, the risk is real. And so as long as you can trust, yourself and your values, and you can trust yourself to make those decisions the right way, you can have a very successful career.
And that was on the fly. You came up with that one on the fly. That was so good.
Just thinking of experiences, that's all. That's all.
That's so good. So good. Oh, love it. Love it. Love it. All right, Justin, we got the last big question for you now. So what do you know now that you wish you knew then? So now in your career, what do you wish you knew when you first started?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I've learned so much throughout my career working in college sports. I was very fortunate to be around college sports growing up. It's interesting. I think so many people are envious of what we do because they think it's cool that we work in sports.
Yep.
And
It
I don't think
is cool. It is cool
It
in
is.
some respects. It
It
is
is.
cool.
I think they don't understand the lifestyle and the grind that it is, but it is very rewarding. Because I think they don't understand. We're all jealous of the paychecks and the actual 40 hours a week they work.
Right.
But there's pros and cons. But I think
I was at my reunion this weekend, and I went to a prep boys prep school, and so it was all these older guys, and I was like, at the end of the day, it's still a job. Like whether you want to believe it or not, like everyone sometimes have cool things about their job, but at the end of the day, you still are working a job, and you have responsibilities, and you have things to do, and as cool as it can be, you're still working. So to me, that's the thing that I think people don't always understand. I kind of agree with you that it's not like it's not like you're sitting there watching sports all day long.
I wish. I used to think when my dad would come home with a baseball glove or baseball bat that's why I wanted to get into sports. Like, I'll be able to get as many baseball gloves and bats as I want. Like, no, it's still, like you said, it's still a job. And yeah, part of it is I get to go to work every day and work in sports and deal with really cool things, but I also have to deal with difficult things. And I also work more than 40, 50, 60 hours a week sometimes. And the one thing I would say is that I wish I knew before is that I kind of understood it, but I didn't realize it as much as it's a lifestyle job, right? It's not 100%. I'm going to punch the clock. I'm going to leave at 5 p.m. My phone rings up until 10 p.m.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. I don't think I've ever heard that turn of phrase, a lifestyle job, because it is.
And part of it is great, but part of it is also very difficult. And if you don't buy into it being your lifestyle, and if you don't have a family that is supportive of that lifestyle, it's going to be very difficult to succeed. I think the other part of it being part of your lifestyle is supporting everyone, right? When I first got started as a football student athlete, I was so into football because it was, big time college football, and they should get all the resources, and, I should just focus on football. Well, we're all here to provide resources and services to all of our student athletes. Here at Cal, we have quite a few of them. We have 850 student athletes, but how far it goes to show up to a game, a match, whatever the sport is, it's called, to show up to practice, to engage with student athletes. I mean, that's part of the lifestyle. Is you need to go and be present, and you need to go and be around, because again, go back to tips 1, 2, 3, and 4. That helps with the communication. That helps with developing the relationships. That helps with having the conversations and seeing the coaches as equal, because you meet them where they are, right? So you think about just being present and going that extra mile. Well, guess what? It will pay off tenfold on the back end. And I think what I would leave it with is the lifestyle, and committing to that lifestyle by showing up and being present.
And if you don't want to have a lifestyle job in sports, then you have to look for what is a very specific job, because I think probably the majority of them whether it be collegiate or pro.
Yeah.
Just from my experience with it, I'm sure you're seeing the same thing, is a lot of them are that lifestyle job. You might have, one or two that's like, oh, I'm a bookkeeper in the business office and I can kind of do a 9 to 5. But that's if you're not a sports supervisor, because once you do that, you're doing what you said. You don't get to choose which games you're going to, because you need to try and make it to as many of your team's games as possible. So what a great tip.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add to that too, Morey, is there's so many entry-level positions that deal with game day work. And as we all know, game day staff, whether it's marketing, whether it's facilities, whether it's equipment room, you name it, right? Athletic training, anything, even compliance. Like, if you're game day staff, you're the first person there and you're the last one to leave.
Yeah.
And that is part of that lifestyle. And it can be a grind, but again, you have to be able to be committed knowing that that's what you're getting yourself into. And it is extremely rewarding. But again, there's a lot of demands that go into it as well.
And you better be prepared when you're dating, because it's almost like a disclosure. Like I remember talking to my wife before while we were dating and being like, just to explain, like, I'm working this amount. This is how my life works. And this is how I make money. So you might want to be aware of it before we go any further here. And that unfortunately was a long road of understanding, but it's how it works.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I've had to have those conversations. Well, no vacations in the fall. I'll be gone for 6 weeks in the fall as well. During basketball season, if we're playing at home, I'm unavailable. Part of it.
Yeah.
It's part of it. But yeah, you need somebody who's going to be supportive of that.
You got to have that understanding. You got about a month in the summer where you're able to figure something out, and then you're back in August so
they plan it all in those months. We're like all on vacation for like 4 weeks, because that's the only time you have.
And I guess we should put the caveat: we are talking about college athletics. Someone that's like a pro sport one probably has a different time frame than that, but that's definitely the college life.
Yeah, it's commitment. It's the commitment of it. And I'm lucky. I'll say that my family likes to go to the sports with me, likes to come up to the soccer games and see softball and volleyball and whatnot. So that helps, but it's still, you're missing nights and weekends and things like that, and you have to be okay with that. So it's a challenge.
Well, Justin, this has been awesome. We so much appreciate you joining us and, sharing. I mean, some of the stuff you talked about, cutting edge, but also just really insightful. So we do appreciate you joining us for this. And definitely for all of our fans out there, check us out on our social media accounts that are coming out, and make sure you're following us, and we'll catch up with you in our next episode.
Thank you, Justin. This was so great. So good to see you.
Thank you both for having me. Very, very good time talking with you, catching up, and always great to see you guys as always.
Yes, thank you.
See everybody next week.
Bye, guys.
If you like the 5 Tips and Tricks podcast, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. You can rate and review us, including questions that may be answered on future episodes. The 5 Tips and Tricks podcast for careers in athletics is part of Athletic Career Consulting. Check us out at www.athcareer.com. Don't forget to follow and like us on your top social media platforms.